Good morning. My name is Gerald McKenzie, and I'm in Pensacola, Florida today. I'm at the University of West Florida, and this is where I come most mornings early to do my exercise. And my exercise consists mainly of walking 2 to 3 miles, not at a brisk pace, but at a nice pace, just to get my exercise in. This morning I'm thinking about my father, Grover McKenzie Jr. He was 95 years old when he passed away earlier this week. And thinking about him and all the different lessons I learned from him and how great life was to have him with me for over 71 years. I consider myself to be extremely fortunate to have gotten that type of time with such a great man. This morning I'm thinking about, what's one of the more significant things I learned from my father. And there are many, because he taught me everything I know. The man I am today is because of the man he was for 71 years. One of the things I'll always remember is the impact that he has had on many people. He has such a positive outlook on everything. Never complained one day. I have never heard him complain about anything. Always positive, always upbeat. I never heard him use a curse word. No profanity. He didn't need to do that to communicate and to get his point across. And the impact of the way he lived his life, I believe, has affected everyone in our family. My father had 7 children. 2 are now deceased. But each one of us have a lot of him in us. And he will continue to be with us for as long as we are on this earth. But one of the topics that's been very important to me was really, who are we? Where did we come from? And my father helped answer that question for me. He spent many hours talking to me about who we are, who I am, who are my people, where do they come from. He spent a lot of time putting a family tree together for his family and my mother's family. And he documented the names, birth dates, locations of all these people that I had never known before. But he laid it all out to kind of give us a sense of where we came from. Now, in his research, he could only go so far back. And that was to his great-grandfather, his grandfather, Thomas McKenzie, and Thomas's wife. Thomas was born in 1861, thereabouts, just before the Civil War. So he was born during slavery. And Thomas had a wife named, I believe, was Sally. Sally was a dark-skinned black woman. Thomas was a very light-skinned black man who could pass for white. And like I said, Thomas was born in the Calhoun County, Orangeburg area. And he had, I believe, had a lot of children, had about 9 to 11 children. I'm not sure exactly right now. But my father said that Thomas was very mean to his children. He made them work extremely hard on the land. to provide, the food for the family. And he was so hard on them that most of the boys actually left South Carolina. They left the land to go off to other parts of the United States, and we don't even know where, but to get away from that very hard environment that Thomas had created for his family. Now, my father's father was one of Thomas's sons, and he was Grover McKenzie. And we consider him to be Grover McKenzie Sr. right now. My father was Grover McKenzie Jr. And Grover McKenzie Sr. Told my father that, it was very hard living with Thomas. And he said that Thomas would make the boys work the field while Thomas would go into town and just to socialize with his friends. And they didn't like that. So my father's father stayed in the Orangeburg, St. Matthews area to try to make a living. And he was able to, sustain himself. And he ended up getting married to Octavia Green. And they started their family in St. Matthews, and that's where my father was born. And in order to take care of his family, my father's father ended up leaving St. Matthews to seek employment in other places. There was something about the weather conditions in St. Matthews that did not agree with Grover Sr. So Grover Sr. ended up going up to Connecticut to look for work where one or two of his brothers had relocated. And he did that for a while, then he returned back to St. Matthews and then once again left St. Matthews and ended up in Chester, Pennsylvania. And so that's kind of how my dad got to Chester to meet my mother, Sara McKenzie. Thomas McKenzie, our great-grandfather, born in 1861, just before the Civil War, I suspect had a very challenging life. But his life was no different than ours. I believe every generation of black people, since they were brought to the United States, have had a very challenging environment to navigate. But what's true is that we've been successful. Thomas was successful enough to get his family raised and able to survive this environment. Just like my father's father, Grover Sr., Grover Jr., and me and our generation today, we've got a lot to deal with living in this environment here in the United States. But it makes me wonder, our DNA goes all the way back to the continent of Africa. I'm convinced of that. Whoever that one person was, that black person that came across the waters by force, they survived something very, very serious. Not many people, I'm not going to say not many, but many people didn't make that trip successfully. But no person who was put on those slave ships back in the 1600s or sooner or earlier wanted to come to this land. I'm sure they dreamed of going back to Africa all the time. I'm sure they dreamed about their families and their loved ones. But they were forced to come here. But their survival in our generation or in our DNA, they survived, which allowed us to be who we are today. And so we need to think about that. Our existence didn't just start here in the United States. We go way back, and we owe a lot to our ancestors. There's no telling how valuable the family tree that Grover McKenzie Jr. had put together for his family. There's no telling how valuable that will be for future generations. But it will be the start for any of his grandchildren and great-grandchildren who may sometime wonder, where they come from and who their people are. that family tree will be invaluable to those individuals. So we owe a lot to Grover McKenzie for what he's done for us in our lives. We've lived a very good life here because of him. But I think those coming after us, the grandchildren and the great-grandchildren, will also benefit from his wisdom and his sacrifice and his thoughtfulness. Thank you, Grover McKenzie Jr. We all love you and appreciate what you've done.